Some of you are probably waiting for a new top 5 series for Smash Bros Wii U, but seeing as GameCube controller adapters are like gold dust, I did have one ordered, but the order was cancelled 5 days after it was supposedly shipped, and although I'm getting used to using a Pro controller, I've still got a lot of stuff to unlock, so it'll be a while, but on this occasion we're looking at some of the characters from Hyrule Warriors. If you haven't seen my review of the game over on Super Real Productions, here's a link to it that'll open in a new window, so take a quick butchers, it's only 7 minutes long. Anyway, as some characters in Hyrule Warriors have multiple weapons that change their fighting style, abilities and all that, this will be a list of my 5 favourite and least favourite character weapon combinations. The only limit is that each character can only appear once in each list. I'm not just looking at which character is the strongest, but has multiple useful combos, impressive special moves, can effectively fight the hordes of enemies you encounter, and, most importantly, are fun to play as. I'm including all the DLC characters and weapons that have been released so far, so there were a fair few to choose from. It was really difficult to decide who and what weapon should take each position, and I changed my mind several times, and that's not just when new DLC became available. It was tempting to just go through each character weapon by weapon, but countdowns are a bit more fun, and I got there eventually, so with that, let's get cracking. It's one of the more recent additions to the game, but Zelda's Dominion Rod is great fun. The rod was really underused in Twilight Princess, but here taking control of those statues has never been more destructive. While you attack your target enemy with the rod, those statues appear to wreak havoc upon the crowds. I prefer the axe wielding thing over the owl statues, but I'll happily use either. Each combo is pretty effective, and the way Zelda poses after the magic attack makes it all the more entertaining. The area affected by the statues can be a tad erratic as it moves all over the place, but at least you can still hit the enemy you're aiming for with the rod itself, so the statues tearing up everyone else is great crowd control. It's still only early days for this weapon, but so far I'm loving it. And we are back with my favourite princess, but this time things aren't so positive. I really didn't like Zelda's Wind Waker when I first unlocked it, but over time I've gotten used to it and it's not that bad, I just don't like it as much as most other weapons. My main issue with it is its range. Sure, some of the Wind Waker's combos have some range, but a few of the moves you'd think would have a lot more range than they actually do. There are a few combos that can hit enemies all around you, but even then, enemies you'd think would be close enough to take a hit don't. It's a little clunky to control and there's a bit of a delay between strikes without having anything to compensate for it, but it's still a funky weapon to use. I'd much rather use Zelda's Dominion Rod or even her Rapier, but if there's a stage where I have to use the Wind Waker, I won't shy away from it. Of all the characters, Link has the most weapons. Several are good, but I could only pick one to be on the favourites list. Luckily, it wasn't too much of a difficult choice as the gauntlets are so much fun. Swinging that giant spiky ball around never gets dull, and the combo attacks are genius, especially as they can have several hits as well. Due to the gauntlets being unlocked in the adventure map, I could have unlocked them much earlier than I did if I played through the adventure map more rather than going through legend mode, but once I did, I used them a lot and was taken in even more when I saw the special attack for the first time, where Link essentially throws the planet. Seriously, look at this. He plonks the ball into the ground and then uses it to fling the planet. That's so awesome. Who needs physics when you can have this much fun obliterating your enemies? But seriously, Nintendo, most characters only have one weapon. A few have 2 or 3. Link now has 7. It's about time some of the other characters got new stuff. Just like with Zelda's Wind Waker, Ruto and her scales is another case of I don't dislike them, I just don't like them as much as other characters and weapons. If I have to use her then fine, I will and I'll do my best, but she certainly isn't my first choice of water character. She seems like she should be a Zora version of Katara from Avatar The Last Airbender, but most of her combos are pretty underwhelming. Her regular attack combo isn't too bad and it works wonders against bosses when their weak point is exposed, but she also suffers from range issues. She has some moves that can cover a large area or be launched to get distant enemies, but they hardly end up being as effective as they look like they should be. Even her special attack only seems to affect those that are close by. Her weak point smash is more effective and does rather well, but it's not enough to make up for her shortfalls. Twilight Princess is my favourite Zelda game, and Midna is my favourite guide, so I was thrilled when I found out she was a playable character in Hyrule Warriors, and she's amazing. She controls Shadow Wolves using the Shackle, which gives her one of the more unique fighting styles. She has several great combos, but there is one I tend to favour, mainly because it covers a huge area, so can affect loads of enemies, which is exactly what this game needs. If I end up using a combo I didn't intend to, I really don't mind, as they are all useful. Her special attacks may not be quite as useful as you'd expect, as it requires a bit more precise aiming, but even if your aim isn't spot on, it's still pretty decent, making Midna a damn good character. Originally I was going to go with Lana's Gate of Time, but as I used that weapon more, it grew on me and now I quite like it. Thing is, I've been using her Deku Spear for much longer and I still can't get on with it, so yes, we are now getting into the realms of actually not liking weapons, but even so, I don't exactly hate it. It's the sort of weapon I thought I would like using, but for some reason it just doesn't click with me. She has some alright combo moves, using the Deku Sprouts is pretty funky, and summoning the Great Deku Tree as the magic attack is cool, but the range seems rather poor. Her basic attack combo isn't too bad, but at the end she always does this pose, which means you have to wait for a few seconds before being able to continue the barrage. You can dodge to cancel the pose out and then continue attacking, but it's still an inconvenience that gets in the way. I seem to do okay with the spear despite not being that keen on it, but I'd still rather not use it. From watching the trailers, Impa's Naginata, is that how it's pronounced? I don't know. Anyway, from seeing it in the trailers, I couldn't wait to unlock it because it looked amazing. For a long time now, I've thought that if I was to learn how to wield the weapon, this would be the sort of thing I'd use. Its fire abilities are the icing on an already delicious cake. It's fun to use, and while its range isn't always top notch, it has some great combos that can ruin enemies. I do have one I tend to favour, mainly because of the satisfying boom at the end, but just like with Midna, there are other combos that can be really useful. To top it all off, the Naginata has one of my favourite special attacks. That's gotta hurt. Zant was a decent bad guy in Twilight Princess, and he was a rather messed up fellow, so I can understand why they've made his fighting style with his scimitars so erratic, but it's ended up working against him. Some of his moves are okay, but a lot of his combos are a bit time consuming, leaving you open for taking a beating. For one of them, he creates one of those heads and spins round, which makes the head spin round and fire out balls of energy, but not only is the move not that effective, but if you use it too long, Zant gets dizzy and you have to wait for several seconds while he recovers. Wizro has a similar move, and not only is his one great to use in a crowd, but he also doesn't run the risk of getting dizzy. If Zant's one had something to compensate for the dizziness risk, then that would be fine, but there's nothing. He also doesn't seem to have any moves that are particularly good at chipping away at a boss's weak points, so they can be more of a hassle than they really need to be. Granted, he does have one move that's pretty sweet, but it's too little, too late. While I may not have liked Lana's stuff, I love her Book of Sorcery. It's so unique, has great combos, effective against bosses, and so much fun. I've loved using it right from the start. Again, there is one combo I tend to favour, but I still quite like her others and make use of them when the situation calls for it. Her special attack can be extremely effective if you catch the tougher enemies in the right place, but even if you don't, it can still wipe the floor with most enemies. I always thought the tiles she throws as part of her magic attack is reminiscent of the floor tiles that attack you in so many other Zelda games, but even if it's purely coincidence, the book is still my favourite weapon to use. When a level recommends an electric type weapon, it's a tough choice between this and Link's Gauntlets, but unless I'm using Link for a specific reason, this will get picked pretty much every time. When the playable characters were being announced, there was one that made me think, why? And that was Agatha. A lot of people have said she sucks, but the thing is, she isn't that bad. She isn't great, but she has her uses. So who could be the character and weapon I put as my most hated? And this time I actually do hate it. Brace yourself now. Epona. The horseback sections in Twilight Princess were great, and I was happy to see her return in Hyrule Warriors, but her attack patterns are so erratic it's extremely difficult to hit what you want to, even if you lock onto it. She has some okay combos, and it's cool Link incorporates his sword and maybe even the bow into the combo, but for the most part, Epona's all over the place. She seems to lurch forward with each move, hitting the enemies on the way past, which would be fine if you could kill every enemy with one hit and they were all nicely lined up. Unfortunately, that never happens, and when it comes to bosses or just taking on one of the stronger enemies, you'll probably end up hitting them once or twice as you pass by and then just flail about hoping for the best. I've tried many times to get used to Epona and I just can't, so I avoid her at all costs. Well, that's my list for the top 5 Hyrule Warriors characters and weapons, so let me know what yours are, as well as what characters or weapons you hope will one day become playable. There's still the Majora's Mask and Boss DLC packs to come, so we'll see how much our lists are affected. But that's all for now, so as always, hope you enjoyed the video, thanks for watching, and see you next time.